makes
Yeah, we prepped.
We're prepped and prepped.
We're prepped.
And Aaron doesn't hit the mute button.
Hey, it's Halloween. We have our costumes.
There was our trick.
Yeah.
Great.
And now for the treat.
I gotta fix my hair.
No, so it is the day before Halloween. I'm pretty excited.
It's on Halloween.
I used to not like Halloween all that much.
What?
What? Why? Tell us. Give us.
Give us the skitty of it.
I didn't care about dressing up, and I didn't really get into Halloween movies.
It's not about the dressing up.
I know.
It's about the Snickers bars.
I didn't
and all
care
the
for
Butterfingers
I didn't
you
care
get.
about candy either.
And the noise.
Well,
Noise.
Came from a very healthy household.
Yeah. I didn't really get
Me,
into
on the other hand,
Hey, I loved Halloween, as you can see.
we had lots of bread.
Well, so what was your
Bread with chocolate.
guys' go-to Halloween candy?
You know, Reese's. I love Reese's cups.
Yeah.
And every Christmas,
Agreed.
Halloween, I love Reese's cups. That's my go-to. And then Snickers. What about you, Aaron?
I'm not sure. I like Snickers are good.
Yeah.
Crunch bars. Those were good.
Those are good.
Reese's was.
What about Kit
Reese's.
Kats? Kit Kats are good.
Kit Kats.
Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me off a kid of that Kit Kat bar.
Kid, break me off a kid.
Piece of that Kit Kat
All
bar.
right, Kevin Spacey.
Oh,
The real horror.
Yeah. Kaiser Sose. Woof.
Didn't see it coming. Ooh.
I'm gay. Oh, good. It finally came out.
all's forgiven.
And I also molested a child.
Yeah. But I'm gay. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, you know what?
We actually are starting with like a real life horror.
You're Roman Polanski's brother,
For
right?
Halloween. No costume. So we've done a couple horror movies up to this point.
We have.
From our quotation mark horror. One was meta, one was like that just was a bad movie.
Could you remind the audience and
We
me,
did the
because I don't remember what we
Cult
did.
of Chucky.
I wasn't here.
Remember
for
that? Remember Cult of Chucky?
That was
I
great.
You made us
do.
watch.
We got 1 million views for that.
Yeah, and we then we did Cabin in the Woods last week. We actually
Which was good.
We had a lot of
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
participation with that one.
Yeah, hope we have some participation tonight, please.
That's
Please
right.
give us
Yes.
your attention.
Because
And your money.
we need
No one's giving us our money yet. We're not lucrative yet.
yet.
Matt's just pocketing it all.
Yeah. No, but really, we
He's
do.
like,
want-
we're not making any money. Okay, Steve Jobs.
whoever's listening, watching, whenever it is, I really would like to come to. I think it's interesting to know where this shakes out. What we're going to talk about tonight, because we're going to decide on the best Dracula movie between 4 options.
4 options.
It's between the 3 Twilights and Dracula Dead and Loving It.
That was actually one of my serious considerations.
I remember. I remember.
Well,
when we
I threw
talked about
in
it.
Den Helsing. I threw in
Oh,
Den
God.
Helsing in there.
That was the true patrician choice.
Oh, yes. It should have been an
God.
Academy Award winner.
No, we're not. We're 100% not.
So
talking
here's
about
the
any
movie.
of those.
Can I say the movie
Yeah,
list
you go.
we're doing?
Go ahead.
All right. We're doing Nosferatu, the first adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula novel, but it didn't have any. It was kind of a legal movie it was in Germany, right? That they made it in Germany. It was a German.
I didn't know where it was
It was
made.
a German
I didn't know
expression
that
film.
they didn't
Yeah.
have the rights to it.
No, they didn't. It was a German expression film, so they changed the characters' names. It was the same story. But the
1922.
1922, silent film era. And before the estate of Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, said that they had to destroy all the films, but I guess the story goes, one copy remained, and that's the copy that we have seen now that has survived. And it is a very it was kind of a groundbreaking for its time. What do you think, Aaron? Not you, Aaron.
Oh. I thought it was great.
But what do you think, Aaron? Well, you don't think, but can you elaborate on more on the Nosferatu?
It was Well,
Well, not the story, because we'll get into that. We'll get into all
I know
the
that-
nitty-gritty, but like just the ground, like
it was
any
very
more,
groundbreaking for its time, of course. I mean,
Any more tidbits that you can add?
I didn't go to the Wikipedia page like you might have.
No, I went to the IMDb page. Rick.
Well, so we're gonna do that. Let's get to the other three.
Okay, and then how many? Because I was 22, 1931, 9 years later.
Yeah.
9 years later,
almost because of the success of which they didn't expect. of
absolutely,
Nosferatu.
Universal did the Bela Lugosi Dracula,
1931.
and it was the first, because it was one of the first talkies. But not only was it the first talkies, it was one of the first talkies horror movies. It's one of the first horror movies. It is the first horror movie that has dialogue, that has audio in it.
And we can get more into some of the performance too, but that one is based off of the Broadway play that
Which
had been
Bela
happening,
Lugosi was
which Bela
starred
Lugosi
in.
was in, and
You can see
they
some
weren't
of the
going to do
elements in
the play wasn't doing all that great, but because of Nosferatu, it kind of ramped when the movie started to get a little bit more widely known.
But that was the beginning
led to
of
the
the
movie.
golden age of the horror movie. Because, I believe that same year, 1931, they released Frankenstein with Boris
yeah.
Karloff.
And there's another
Transgender?
transgender. No, there's another cross character actor between this movie and that,
Oh, who is
which
it?
was the 1931 was Renfield.
It
Was
was Igor.
Fritz he was the Igor character in
Yeah.
the original Frankenstein.
No, or was he Frankenstein?
No, he was Igor. He was
Igor.
he played Fritz. He wasn't. His name's not Igor in
So
the original.
he was Fritz.
Yeah.
So so what's interesting about that, which we'll just make we'll make a little notation. Maybe next year we'll do the Frankenstein movies.
Yeah.
Is that one has nothing to do with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein at all? Like it really deviates. But
Do any of the Frankenstein movies try to be like the book?
I guess the Robert De Niro one kind of did, and that one was terrible.
There's a Robert De Niro Frankenstein movie.
We got that's the next one.
Hey,
we gotta
next
do.
year.
Next year. We're gonna do 4 Frankenstein. 4, I tell you.
If we're still around,
Well, you know
please
what?
give us
There's
money.
another Hammer Frankenstein that Peter Cushing's in as Frankenstein.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
There's just all of these. They just run the gamut.
Oh, they do.
They do. You're going to tell me Anthony Hopkins is in like a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie?
No,
No, he was Swamp Thing.
Swamp.
we can do the Elephant Man. Anyways, but
So what are our last two?
okay, so the last two is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is 2 different titles. In England, it was just called Dracula, and I think it was The Blood of Dracula.
Horror.
Horror.
Dracula.
Horror of Dracula. Excuse me, The Horror of Dracula in the English version. So it was really
But you wish
still.
you had your notes now.
I did.
1958.
1958, and this was the first. This is when color started to take over, and color. This was the first horror movie, especially the first Dracula movie with. I don't know if it's the first horror movie, but the first Dracula movie with color, and they show it right off at the very beginning with the blood splatter on the title
Yep.
and stuff.
That was their.
And it was real red blood.
They clearly knew that was their in.
It was
like,
Technicolor.
hey, here's our blood.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but you had to imagine for the audience
Yeah,
how
it's like
gripping that was the first time
bright
you see
red
blood like that in the theater.
And the last one?
And the last one is 1991.
4.
Was it 4? Matt's got the
If
notes.
it's on the graphic, I don't remember where it is.
I think it was 1991.
I did write it down. Hold on.
It was 1994.
Let's look at Matt here. Anyways, we'll figure out the date is, but that was a Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula that was actually called Bram Stoker's Dracula.
92.
1992 that came out. And I remember when it came out as a kid. You know, of course, I was so young I wouldn't even be able to see it. I saw it much later in life. Actually, a few years ago, when it was on Netflix. And because I saw bits and pieces about it, growing up. But that one's more faithful to the novel.
In
and
places.
actually a very huge undertaking in directorial-wise
Yeah.
of how he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about all those things.
All four.
All four
So
of them?
Nosferatu 1922, the Universal Monster.
Bela Lugosi, Dracula,
1931, 1958, Christopher Lee, and 1992, Coppola.
And
Bram Stoker.
I guess recently there was so the guy who was in The Hobbit, and also he was guest on in Beauty and the Beast. There was
Yeah.
a recent Dracula movie that actually wasn't bad. I heard it wasn't bad,
Okay.
which maybe we'll review next year. But that transcends.
Is this going to be like Cult of Chucky?
I have no idea. I've never seen it. But I'm saying like we're trying to span times of these different Dracula movies of different eras, and it's funny because the two closest ones are 22 and 31.
Yeah.
So, but just different, and it's different times of different when these movies came out. So go, Matt, take it away. I've talked enough.
So we're gonna. That's what we're doing.
I know, but
We're gonna do.
But
so
you're
you want to just stop talking?
yeah, no, but you leave
Please
the show.
stop talking. Stop talking.
You're the Bob Barker.
We're gonna do. So this is gonna be a showdown. So we're gonna. By the end of this, we're gonna talk.
Listen, I'm your Ed McMahon over here. All right, give me a break. You're Johnny Connerston. I'm Ed McMahon.
We're gonna do. So we're gonna talk about different aspects. We're gonna compare them across the 4 films, and then at the end, we're gonna vote on which is the best. And if you're watching or listening, chime in too at each step.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Please
'cause
chime in.
We're very interested.
And it's kind of fun. The more we do this live, it's kind of fun to interact with our audience
Yeah.
and stuff as well.
And like it.
Because we like to talk. We have a discussion about this.
So before we get going, of these, how many had you seen before, Aaron?
Only the newest.
Which one? You'd only seen Bram Stoker's?
Yeah.
Interesting. So you had to. Wow, that's
Wow.
very different. I'd only seen the first Nosferatu and the Universal one.
I've seen all of them.
You'd seen all of them before
Yeah.
now? Wow, nerd.
Well,
I love the
Speaking of the showdown. Yeah. Okay, that's
And
enough.
we'll take
No copyright strikes
all
for
that
us.
work. All that work. It's 2 hours of work just for that 2 seconds.
all right, so before we
Cinema.
get to the first one, let's just quickly go over the overall, because it's basically the same story every time.
It is, but
and we could
different.
talk about the tweaks a little bit, but
And I have a little bit of information about the actual story itself that I found a summary of. I don't read very well. I mean, duh.
they had a lot of pictures.
Yes, there were a lot of pictures in it. I had the graphic novel of Dracula. Done by Stan Lee.
The Alan Moore Dracula version is much more in depth.
This is the
ahead.
Dracula where he has the web shooters instead of
But the Alex Ross version was very realistic. He painted every panel.
So what's your secret information that you got?
Oh, we'll talk about it as we go through.
Okay,
That's
well,
what
so
I'm saying.
they'll.
We'll talk. Like I'll add tidbits of the book and things
Okay.
that I've figured out.
But-
Guys, check this out.
What's this? Play it again, Sam.
Oh, it's too quiet. It says, "Help! I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement."
I remember
Wow.
that joke.
Family Guy predicted it years ago.
That's crazy.
Topical. So the showdown.
Amazing.
That was kind of weird. That mirror. In
Somebody
the mirror.
filmed their TV.
Yeah. So
Wow.
the Dracula story is pretty
It
familiar.
was a nice little effort, but
The Dracula story is
I
pretty
should've
familiar.
pre-screened
Nosferatu does, they do the like pirated like knockoff DVD version. The what are those horror movie knockoff? The Asylum. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
They make like knockoffs of blockbuster movies. It's
those-
basically the Sharknadoization of things where they like instead of like Transformers, they'll make a movie called
Transmorphers, I remember that.
Transmorphers.
Yeah.
And they like try and convince people and trick them to pay for it, and it's the wrong movie.
but
it's still like,
but how they can prey on people
Yeah,
anymore?
and it's like so
older
bad
people,
it's good.
Older people like.
I got you the Transmorphers like you like.
Yeah.
I feel like
There's
Nosferatu.
a Blade version. There's a Blade one
Yeah.
of that too. Like I forget what
Robots in disguise.
it's called.
robots in costumes.
I used to have the knockoff kids knockoff Transformer toys that weren't Transformers. that they made fun of.
Transmorpher.
I put Nike on my shoe. I do remember that. And then Nike had to mail me a cease and desist letter.
Nikkei with an accent mark.
I got made fun of.
But
I'm a
I
graphic
feel like
designer.
Nosferatu's kind of the like Transmorphers story wise, not from a quality standpoint, but like story wise, that it's like we can't say Count Dracula. We can't say
Yeah.
this person. Like,
changed
oh,
it.
we can do Lucy. We'll do Lucy. That's they can't get us on that. They can't sue us for that. But we'll do Count Orlok. And
But they still sued him.
yeah, obviously. But in terms of, it's still the same story. Basically, is what I'm getting at. Of
Just in terms of the names, just in terms of
this Harker character is sent out to,
yeah, because
do something with Dracula, which has changed. At
well,
first.
no, because I watched it recently. It was because it's fresh in my mind. Go sell a house to him because
that's
because
the initial, but that's not.
The Renfield character couldn't do it.
Right.
So it was the house next to where he lived.
Right.
That
And
was
so-
that was dilapidated.
And we start to realize that Dracula's this monster, and he has to suck blood. He has these brides, and then he
Wait, does he have brides in the black and white one?
He's very self-conscious.
no,
by his
not in the
ears.
black, not in Nosferatu. No.
Nosferatu doesn't have brides.
No, the other three do.
The other three do.
And so then we get the
So we're talking about.
I'm just talking about the commonalities.
Okay.
Dracula takes a boat every time it's the boat.
Every
it seems
time it's the
like
boat.
he takes it back.
It's
He
a
brings his
good
soil.
ship.
He brings his soil
Lollipop.
with him. He kills everyone on the boat, and then he basically
And he
wreaks
wonders
havoc.
why people try to kill him.
Yeah, why are you trying to?
What's with that?
Why do
Why are you killing me? That hurts.
I was just going for a manicure.
And then we're sort of reconnected with our standard characters: Van Helsing, Lucy, Mina, and Harker, who whether he makes it back or he was just there the whole time. And Dracula dispenses with Lucy first, who is the token weak-willed woman character who exemplifies the sexual
horror,
temptation.
Yeah.
That's the general symbolism.
Yeah.
And then he bites her and converts her, and then he wants to go after Mina, and then it's like the hunt for Dracula after that.
Yep.
Where then we realize how you kill vampires.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No.
No.
We'll get into the differences. All right. Let's start with our first big question.
I'm pressing buttons.
I'm really enjoying that.
Nothing
if you're
is
watching,
happening. If
Hey.
you're watching,
Aaron, my Aaron mask is just here in the corner.
I put my mask back.
It's really funny. You should put it on the skeleton.
Okay, all right.
That's pretty fun. That'd be even funnier.
Too spooky.
All right, you got to do it. It's really funny. That's really funny.
That's good.
All right, so our first question. Best Dracula between the four. And so with this, I thought we could talk about acting. We could talk about how the character was portrayed versus the others. We could talk about also, I would love to actually start with which was the strongest. Like which one was the most menacing of the four? Because they each had a certain set of powers, but they were also a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. They are.
Aaron, what stands out for you in terms of best Dracula? Character. The character, not the movie, obviously.
Right.
We're
Not the movie.
we're not
Dracula.
there yet.
Dracula, the character.
I've always had, and more so after seeing it for the first time, like in full. I always liked the Lugosi. He had a certain presence to him. He felt, however corny the movie was, he felt intimidating, and I liked his like he's all. I guess suave is the word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's like people feel like his portrayal is the one people associate with Dracula.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
But
Oh.
my actual answer is
Oh.
Gary Oldman. Because
There's more depth to the character.
so much more depth. And
Do you think that's through the performance? Well, I guess the part of this question is both, but they give him more depth in the story.
The script is written.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be one of those people that adjusts for inflation on acting. I mean, acting got better as time went on.
Well, it didn't get better. It just got different because
It became more nuanced.
well, exactly. So look, so I'm gonna piggyback on you on that.
Sure.
So why don't you finish what you're gonna say, and then
That
I'm
was
going.
it. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to mine. No, because I'll go to my thing because I'll piggyback and I'll keep talking for a while, but I want to get your due on this.
I
particular-
was seriously done.
Okay, all right. So here's my thought about this, and I really thought long and hard about this.
Thanks for the mouth sounds.
I know you love it. You
I
love
love
gum chewing, and
we're gonna unravel my fears. that are in
well,
my,
we already unraveled my
nitpicks.
fears, so we'll talk about that later. Okay, so here's the thing.
If only to be a butterfly on the wall, right, Ben?
Just a fly. Just a fly.
Just a fly, please. All right, go ahead.
Just 1950s fly. So okay, Gary Oldman's performance was unbelievable.
Agreed.
And Gary Oldman is a very amazing actor. Everything that Gary Oldman is in is gold. Is gold. Like there's really not a bad performance of Gary Oldman.
Gary
Even in,
Goldman.
Gary Oldman.
I know. Goldman. He's gold.
He's gold. Gary Oldman.
Oh, I'm Dracula.
See, I made a joke.
He made it funny. But he's gold. He's amazing. The
You have
script
any idea
allowed
how hard it is to get your hair like this?
the script in Bram Stoker's Dracula allowed so much exploration. One of the differences between Bram Stoker's Dracula, the director, I can't think right now. Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola's direction is that not only was more true to the novel, they actually explored deeper into the character of Dracula. So it was all
They
about.
gave him almost an origin story.
Well, yeah, and the movie was about
Just
him.
different.
The movie's about him.
Right.
He's the lead.
Yeah.
He's the main character in it.
We give him more motivation beyond just
And
he is an undead
going to
monster.
kill.
You humanize him
Yeah.
a lot more.
Right.
So in terms of performance, in terms of acting performance, in terms of like character development, I think Gary Oldman is one of the strongest Draculas ever on screen. Now, in terms of the best, I have a different point of view.
Okay.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Now, you talked about how acting is better. Now,
I revised that statement to more nuanced.
well, it's more nuanced, but you had to think of the times.
I don't.
You don't think of the times, but I'm thinking of the times too. So if you think of it, and you even see the way it's filmed too, you have coming off the silent film era. You also have, like you said earlier, that the 1931 Dracula was based on an original play with Bela Lugosi. You have to think about that time period, even with the Marx Brothers and things like that. Even with King Kong, as great of a movie that is, even the dialogue that was written and the performances was written, a lot of it came from the stage. And the translation of a stage acting and movie acting didn't really develop until years later. And so, because there's more projecting on stage, there's more emoting on stage, there's more overacting on stage.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have a microphone.
You have to reach the audience.
You gotta get the guy in the last bit.
Yeah.
Even the makeup in 1931 is big. You know, you don't like lipstick.
No. Oh, God.
You have to think about it. Someone has to see it from very far away to see that. So, that being said, I think the best Dracula, even though Gary Oldman's amazing in Bram Stoker Dracula, is Bela Lugosi. And here's a few reasons why. Not because I'm making a play for how the acting was back in 1931, but most importantly, one, it was one of the first silent films era of all time. He was Hungarian. He was first talkies, excuse me, of the horror movie of at that time, and he was Hungarian. He didn't know a bit of English, only the lines he had to learn. And he portrayed that there was so much silence in the movie because they didn't have any music in the original 1931 Dracula.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
We'll talk about that. But he emoted with his eyes and the few little bit of dialogue he had. Now, like you said earlier, what we know of Dracula, the image of Dracula is Bela Lugosi. Every parody of Dracula is Bela Lugosi. The Count from Sesame Street is Bela Lugosi. Count Chocula is Bela Lugosi's Dracula. All these different things. Dracula. He made the icon of Dracula.
Well, and I would even argue that Gary Oldman is almost.
He's trying a little bit.
We're trying this is the image of Dracula, so the two versions of which, or even the three, because Gary Oldman goes through three iterations almost. One is old man Dracula, which we never see because he's almost always in previous versions like satiated. Like he's fine. Like he hasn't gone a long time without having blood and feeling youthful or whatever. So we see like this creepy old version. And then we see this even younger with like hipster glasses, and,
And a little goatee.
he's Johnny Depp basically.
Absolutely.
And so we see that, which is almost intentionally trying to be counter to in long hair, like, and a top hat.
They differentiate.
Like they're trying
trying to
so
get that
hard
trope.
not to be
No.
the one that we think of.
No,
and here's also a horror wolf bat monster. Like the whole point of me bringing this up is that as strong, because I agree with you, as strong and as powerful as the acting performance was, and as like inventive as it was, like you just can't shake it.
And I love it, and I
like,
love it, and I appreciate it.
They did
I'm with
all.
you.
They did all of it. Almost, you can see the motivation for what they did each step is because they wanted to distance themselves from what you thought of Dracula, because that is the iconic version is Bela Lugosi. And
Absolutely.
it's hard
They
to
didn't
shake
want
it.
to step on
And
toes.
you know
Yeah.
what? You know what thing they didn't shake? And this is interesting to know because I'm with you. I love that they did that,
And-
I love that it was
yeah,
different. I
go
love
ahead.
that it's different. And like you know what? I wouldn't change it. If it was Bela Lugosi in 1992, I'd hate it.
it would be pretty bad.
I'd be like, whoa,
Yeah.
like fuck you, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
No, I hate it. But the one thing that they kept, and this kept through every Dracula movie other than Christopher Lee doing it, is the Hungarian accent.
Yeah.
And that was his original authentic accent.
Yep.
And it's like he was made to play Dracula.
And I think Bram Stoker wrote the characters as well, relatively like in that
East
era,
European.
or in that area.
But the inflections, because there's different. I mean, obviously, there's different dialects in every culture
Sure.
of language. But the inflections of the way that Bela Lugosi say, it, like,
Dracula.
come here.
Well, and the thing,
Like that translated even with Gary Oldman's performance.
I think while Gary Oldman's version has a lot of depth to it, we know he gets the benefit of the backstory. He gets the benefit of modernization. He gets the benefit of like the principle of difference, that we see him as this old creepy guy rather than
that's
like
amazing.
a suave version
Yeah.
that we're used
and
to.
with different variations of him too.
The thing that they tried to do in the new Bram Stoker with Gary Oldman that didn't play as well as 1931 or even Nosferatu, especially Nosferatu, is that they tried to make him creepy, menacing, and they had to resort to transforming him into a monster rather than him as himself being creepy,
Yeah.
menacing. There were some scenes where he's like licking blood or whatever, but like when you watch the 1931 or Nosferatu, them as themselves have like a menace to them as normal people, which is different.
You're right.
Bela Lugosi, they rely a lot on his like cuts to his eyes, but like his power to like stun people, it's a difference. For me, it is more
The nuances of it.
the fear and the like intimidation is
Are this
more so
creep-
than like, oh, he transforms into a monster. Well, yeah, obviously he's
And that's-
stronger when he's the monster,
And that's
But,
surface level scary, right?
Right.
That's
whereas Bela Lugosi is just like, oh god, like he can just like
there's something scary
he
about
can
him.
just
in his
mind
presence.
control me by looking at me. You know,
Yeah.
he has this like
He's
they
so
really
dreamy.
played up his eyes,
They did.
and then in Nosferatu, it's like just him as a person looks. He's terrifying.
He is.
He's got the like rat fangs. And stuff.
Could you not talk about my ears, please?
Yeah, he's just like every shot of him, even his like mannerisms,
His arm,
everything
his fingers
about
are
him.
the best part.
Oh my
It-
god,
it
he's
stinks.
a monster through and through.
He is, and like it stinks that we have to leave him out, of this. But he that's
well,
an
look,
iconic imagery
hey,
too.
We're not leaving him out. Who's being left out is Christopher Lee.
But he does a good. But he does a good job.
That's the
He-
problem.
he
Is
does a
all
good-
of them are at least good.
Yeah, they are good.
I would argue before we move on to the next one, and we'll keep talking about it, but
Yeah.
I felt Christopher Lee's performance, whereas he's the first one, there was one movie in between Dracula with 1931 Bela Lugosi. There was like I think it was like a Turkish movie or something that
Yeah.
came out.
Turkey Wood?
Some obscure one. And then
They want
1958
the drumstick.
Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee, which Ben mentioned it was all in color, first one in color. it also was the first one, other than that Turkish movie, where he actually had the fangs.
Yeah.
Where Nosferatu had like the rat teeth, like
Yeah.
the like incisors in the front.
Yeah.
The iconic fangs were Christopher Lee, but I felt like that his and the red eyes and stuff. Like I don't know, I just nothing was going for me with Christopher Lee.
So can we clarify before we move on? In your opinion, who's the best Dracula?
Who's mine?
Yeah,
Bela Lugosi for
Bela
sure.
Lugosi.
Yeah.
So 2-1. Look about that. I didn't expect that.
I thought
But
Gary
I thought-
Oldman was really good,
But I thought Gary Oldman was
and I
amazing.
actually think
he's a better performer.
I think Nosferatu's. Well, let's go to the next one.
Well, but can I quickly explain my choice?
Yeah. With
Okay.
your hat on. Your hat in our podcast.
It's cold.
Son of a bitch.
When it comes to reviewing things or enjoying things, I absolutely do not adjust for time or era or
And that's
anything.
Totally
Like, it-
fine.
I do.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
I do.
But if I
preference.
was adjusting for time, I would pick Lugosi, of course.
Yeah.
But I try to judge things as they are in the moment I'm in. I mean, it even goes back to our video games.
No, you're
It
fine.
stinks and I don't like
Like,
it.
think of the video games we play. We play a lot of old games on Sharks.
We do. Please watch it.
Yes, please watch.
We need your help.
Game Sharks.
The Game
Yeah.
Sharks.
Game Sharks.
There are games that are still good from that era just because they're flat out good. They're good regardless
They're
of when they were
timeless.
made. And there are games from that era that stink.
Yeah. Fester's Quest.
I tried playing that the other day. It's like they tried everything they could to make it unfun because the skeleton is there for a good game.
It is. But it still pretty scary. But anyways, go on.
So you go
Yeah.
with Bella.
So I don't
adjust.
adjust for time.
Sure.
I pick what I think is best on its merits.
And good for you.
It's fine.
Good
No,
for you.
and I'm
Okay.
actually, I'm. Your opinion's fine.
I agree with you.
amateur-
I know I'm doing my impression of you. I don't care what you pick.
I like everything else.
Come here.
Chocolate, Hoggle, vanilla.
Cool.
I prefer Count Chocula.
That was a good. That was a good.
Fruity
accent.
Pebbles, no way. Cocoa Pebbles, yes.
No, I'm actually. I think I'm actually in between you two.
Yeah.
Because I think it's actually pretty close. Because
Well, I'm with you too.
what Gary Oldman did was impressive.
It was.
and he's just an amazing actor
Well,
in general.
but
so.
could we say this before we move on? I also think the writing is much better in Bram
Oh
Stoker's.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's clearly because of times.
Yeah.
The
Well,
times.
they can
Even in 58.
they can do film school it. We'll get to it. We'll
Oh
get
my
to it.
god!
Sure. All right, let's go.
I have some things to say.
Let's go. All right, next one.
I
don't
love
even-
how my
Spookiest.
things are working today.
So spookiest of the four.
Oh man, this is tough. This is
I
tough.
think this is not tough at all.
For me, it's tough.
Oh yeah.
Cool,
you kidding me?
Cool, why don't you go first, and I'll go second, then Aaron can go
I'm-
last.
I can't even believe
Say
this
what
is a
you
debate.
must,
I can't even.
Well, I actually am on the fences right now. And
Spookiest by far, like in terms of like give you chills, potentially give you like make you even look. We're adults. Things that make you like scared are few and far between at this point. That make you uncomfortable.
Taxes.
Oh God.
Work.
FBI.
I got this rash on
Kevin
my leg.
Spacey.
Is it benign or not?
Guys, so say.
I think Nosferatu is
benign.
by far the spookiest. Not even close.
Oh, wow.
Because, look, I get silent movie. You know, we kind of, in general, you start to dismiss it. But I also feel like, and it falls into that, like, trying to compare sports eras almost like, oh, those guys from the 50s, if you put them in today, like, oh, it doesn't even translate. Nothing, like, they couldn't even compete, but they're just good because it was the time or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie did such a good job in so many ways with the setting, even though it's crappy lighting. Like, they still did interesting things with shadows, obviously.
Yes. Well, the step scene,
the-
the heart scene.
The actor, which I wish I had printed this off because it sucks that I'm not going to repeat his name, that played Nosferatu.
I'm gonna look it up while you.
It's like something Van Eyck or something.
And Ike.
He his general appearance is great, but also like his movements and the costuming, everything about it. But also just I think what actually helps it is the silent era, the old look to it, that it almost comes off like almost documentary
Yeah.
feel in the
does.
shaky cam that it almost feels
Well, okay.
creepier because of all of those variables.
Okay, so you know the actor's name. I forgot about this. This is funny. His name is Max Schreck.
Shrek.
Does that sound familiar? Hold on. Does that sound familiar? Where did you hear that name in any movie of Max Schreck?
Stay out of my swamp.
I was trying to think of a joke like that too.
Batman Returns. The name of Christopher Walken's character, who's the Mongol. His name is Max Schreck.
Bruce Wayne.
But yeah, Bruce
you
Wayne.
dressed
Why
like
fine,
Batman.
draft Batman.
Hey, quit trying to
But
suck
like,
my
so
blood.
you can tell that that Tim Burton kind of paid tribute to that.
Sure.
You know? So Max Schreck's his name.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my spookiest. What's your guys?
Okay, so I'll go, then you go, Aaron. Or do you want to go, Aaron? You tell me.
I'll go.
Okay.
I can already tell you that I thought Nosferatu was the least spooky.
Wow.
It just didn't hit home for me.
Interesting.
Because of what he said before.
No, you know as well as I do that I have an appreciation for old things.
Yes.
I can
love your
appreciate
mom,
old
too.
things with the I can appreciate old things with the best of them. That one just didn't hit home for me.
yeah.
It wasn't spooky at all. Like it just felt like a stage play almost that wasn't good.
What was your
Spookiest?
in terms of, and maybe not even like the scariest, but like something that was like, oh, that scene is so, that really did,
That scared me.
that was like, you can appreciate the values of it from like a horror trope standpoint.
Well, I feel like Bram Stoker's Dracula 92 is the easy answer. Because, I mean, there's some actual spooky stuff in there. But as I'm used to Hollywood sort of stylings from the 80s, 90s onward, I was more scared, or not. I felt that the Lugosi 1931 was a little more off-putting in its presentation.
Yes.
It was not scary, but it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if you watch this, you gotta think of a kid watching this. You know, like you think of like when you first saw this, your experience of how scary it is. The same thing with Chucky when I was a kid. I was scared of that. As we become adults, we're not as easily scared.
We're cynical.
In movies. We are. We're very cynical. I remember when in the 1990s, I was a little bit older, and I saw like when Bram Stoker's Dracula came out, I saw previews of it, like Siskel and Ebert doing a review on it or something like that. And I remember being terrified of just the scenes. This looks so scary. It looks so scary. I was afraid of Abyss, and things like that.
This is such a
And I wasn't allowed to see these movies. You know, I didn't see it until later in life. So I remember like this, like the when Gary Oldman talked about the creatures of the night. You know that scene. How creepy that was. And if I would have saw it at that time, I would have been terrified. But I didn't see it at the time. But I remember my mom loved the horror movies and stuff like that. And we saw a lot of horror movies when we were younger, like the old classic Universal ones.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the Bela Lugosi one. I didn't see Nosferatu until real late, you know, because we don't watch silent movies in our front.
Yeah.
But when I remember being terrified as a kid, and I was really young, watching the Bela Lugosi Dracula. And
Any scene in particular, or any part, or just
every time he was on screen,
yeah.
A lot
Every
of his
time-
not talking was effective.
it was. And so it's interesting to know. I'm going to make a little tidbit about the music in this and the lack thereof. So 1931, it came out. The only music is in the opening credit, and like when he sees the opera, and the lack of music and that silence, because someone scored the movie.
yeah,
actually,
I watched the scored version.
and I watched actually.
What?
Yeah,
Someone scored it?
they did recently 19 or 2000.
I couldn't tell you when. I didn't know that there was a non-scored version until you said so. But now that you say that, it makes sense because a lot of the time during the one I watched, I was like, "Why is there music playing?" when there shouldn't be?"
Exactly. I think yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, they rescored it, but
I
it was,
still
but
liked it.
But
yeah.
But
It's different though.
It's a completely different movie, and
Okay.
but they paid homage to. But it was a good score, and I remember listening to it. They
Sure.
scored.
Yeah,
they scored
I'm
it, but it was
sure it
modern.
was fine.
But they scored it in the time. They didn't make it like really epic or anything like that. They
But
scored.
to its credit, it felt like a '30s score to me.
It did. However,
overall point is the silence.
The
though,
silence
helps.
is what made it uncomfortable. I think you would have made it more uncomfortable, even though you
100% agree.
I think the silence made it so scary.
And you see him like slowly inching towards somebody.
Even the set, like when he's just standing there walking down, everything was very slow what he did, and it was very accentuated, and it made it that much scarier. And his eyes and his silence, is, I think, what made it scary. Now, being a little kid, being I don't know, like eight, watching this as a kid, that was really scary.
I will say the story itself has built into it one of the scariest plots if you are a kid.
Absolutely.
Which is the Lucy after she's been bitten and after she has died and she has come back, and you hear about her lurking and trying to convince kids to, she's getting kids at night. And like luring them out and luring her with candy or whatever. To
they portray it really well in the Bram Stoker and the 1958 version.
That's kind of where I'm going. Is that all three of them, other than Nosferatu, mention this idea of she's awoken from the dead and going and getting these children. I actually think one of the strongest parts, which clearly we're all not. We've talked a lot about the other three movies, but I think one of the strongest parts about the 1958 version of Horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee is the Lucy character and that scene where they show we actually see the kid and like the child has agency and is all creeped out, and we see the whole luring process almost, and like, oh, I called you in the night and I met you out in the woods and I'm going to bring you back, and it's like, and that actress is fantastic too, like everything about it, like they played up the most terrifying scene for a kid very successful. Like I felt like that was the strongest part of that movie. So if I was going to award spooky points, I would give the 58 version.
5 spooks out of
And I'm with you.
Some spooks.
I think they portray that more. Can I mention something that I remember? Because there was a tangent when I went off. Because, folks, I want to be a director someday. I want to make movies someday. And I listened to a lot of movie directors, just like interviews, old movie directors. And one of them was Orson Welles. And he talked about wanting to make Dracula into a movie. His version of Dracula. And they kind of showed in Bram Stoker's a little bit, but he talks about one scene in general.
Wolfsbane.
He talks about Wolfsbane. He talks about there's a scene, there's a description in the book that they kind of portrayed, but it wasn't. I don't think it did it justice in the movie. And I think they did it differently in the movie.
Which scene?
Well, there's a scene where Dracula goes off at night and he brings back a sack full of babies. And he feeds these babies to his brides.
They did. The only one they mentioned was
Bram
Stoker's.
Bram Stoker's. But like he said, that's so terrifying.
Yeah.
He said the way they would do it.
That's
creepy. A sack of babies and the brides, and they feed off the baby.
Oh my God.
I want to make a Dracula.
A sack of babies and like that is terrifying.
Take note, Darren Aronofsky. Get it together.
The babies are about the environment.
So, and I think they that was creepy and
it's Mother Earth.
I think it was creepy in Bram Stoker's Dracula, like that. If you were a kid watching this, but it didn't play off as creepy enough.
No.
Because it was kind of like it was a side thing, and I remember him talking in depth about. Oh my God, that would be so like.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I would love to see a French
That's a baby eating scene I can get behind.
Sponsored by Planned Parenthood.
Oh, well done. Well played. All right.
And the tour moves on.
Next one. All right.
There's product placement. Lucy goes into Planned Parenthood.
Oh, that might be the funniest thing I've ever heard you say.
Yeah, stick around. No, that's
Okay,
it.
we'll
That's
switch.
it. I'm going to die tomorrow.
Will my buttons work today? What is wrong with my buttons?
Just click it. Click it or tick it.
I think it's only on me when it comes up. Yeah. All right. Best Van Helsing. This sucks for Nosferatu because as an iconic character with the Dracula lore, this was one of the things they cut for that version.
He did.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say
that doctor was supposed to be one. The one who examined like the...
Yeah.
But he wasn't.
Yeah, no.
He didn't do shit.
we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
We'll get there
sorry.
next. So
Sorry.
we have three
Sorry,
Van Helsings. We've got
Peter Cushing,
Peter Cushing from 1958. We've got
1931 Dracula. Van
he's
Helsing.
just like some stereotypical German
He's
guy.
old man.
Hey,
Van
I fixed
Helsing.
it.
And then we have Anthony Hopkins and the Bram Stokers. Basically, we have one that is 1931 is like pure scientist from like observational science kind of person. Peter
somehow know how
Peter
to beat
Cushing
you.
is like
The Vampire Hunter.
very straight laced, but like I'm getting it's almost like a revenge, but also like we show like a caring element where he takes care of the kid and doesn't overreact to things. He's very like cool and collected.
Yeah.
And then
Panic in our moment of triumph.
then we get like quirky,
Underestimate Doc
very
chances.
quirky, unnatural, awkward Anthony Hopkins, but
Who's
like
still good.
endearing quirky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of our Van Helsings,
I'll go.
go ahead.
I love all of them. Every one of them.
Really?
Well, I'll get there. I love all of them. I love the.
You'll get there from love to not love.
Well, to say
I'll
the
get
number,
there.
number one.
I love
number
him,
one.
but I hate
okay,
him.
all right.
Yeah, there's one that in particular that I think is better. The 1931 Van Helsing is very good because he's an older gentleman who's like the good, they're very good that you kind of root for. You have Anthony Hopkins who's like unbelievable. It's Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, of
it's
course.
Anthony freaking Hopkins. Unbelievable. He plays the nuances of Van Helsing, but I think the best one is Peter Cushing. I think Peter Cushing is the best because one, not only is that movie it really should be called Van Helsing Facing Dracula because it's mostly about
It should
him.
just be called Van Helsing.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
though he comes in later.
Yeah, because
But
Dracula's barely like.
But Peter Cushing is an amazing actor. An amazing,
Hear.
amazing actor because he plays it so straight laced. He gives his 100% performance. Now, given what he was given, that's what he was given. He played it unbelievably true and believable and comforting. And when he was
Sure, he didn't have a lot to work with.
No.
You're 100% right there.
But everything he did was like believable and professional. Like he's a method actor, and I researched more about this. But he actually, I think he actually talked to medical professional, doctors and stuff,
Sure.
to really understand that. And you can see it when he gives the transfusions and stuff. You can see when he checks on the patients and stuff. You can see when he comforts the little girl.
You're right.
There's something real about that.
Something,
that makes comforting about it. That he is the protagonist in this whole thing. That being said, the Bram Stoker's. I love Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is amazing, but the way that they wrote that one is where really the Bram Stoker's Dracula movie is Dracula is not only the protagonist but and the antagonist at the same time. So it's not a really straight good sense. And Van Helsing's not even the main character. He's a really strong part. But I think that's more an ensemble other than Dracula being the main part. Where I think when 1958 Van Helsing is the main part.
Yeah, I think you hit it
better.
perfectly. Is that he is the hero of the movie?
Yes.
He's the main character and the hero, versus being a participant, almost in like a Godzilla movie. Like, I'm the expert who is
I'm
helping us
Gamera.
take down the monster.
You're right.
Whereas this is it's a monster movie. In the 1958. Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, he's just the hero of the movie, killing the monster. We're hoping he succeeds the whole way, and and that goes to the weakness of the Dracula in that movie, he was very poor. But
This is a tough call for me.
Sure.
Because I love Anthony Hopkins.
So, Aaron, where do you fall?
Always go with Peter Cushing. That's my rule. On stage presence alone, he wins.
Even CGI. Peter
Look at those
Cushing?
cheekbones. He hasn't seen CGI.
I haven't seen it, no.
Yeah,
That's gonna be a fun.
I've only seen the stills.
You know what? That's what we should do before the Star Wars one. By the way.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah,
for
let's
sure.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said yeah.
Okay.
This is a tough one. I want to, on principle, not pick Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, go for the contrarian answer, please.
Just because Anthony Hopkins, I think, did the best performance, like from an interesting, like
Same thing with Gary Oldman.
not just best performance, but like from a range. Range is the word I'm looking for. Like he showed
more
from
depth.
here to here.
But he was given that. He was given that.
Right. I want to.
And you know,
I want to punish him from a quirky standpoint. I want to punish him
Want
for
to
like
be a hipster.
this is so interesting that people are dying. And, can you believe the lore that it's playing out just like the book said? And
Can I ask you a question?
People are massacred.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When Lucy was dead, like, what do you think about that part when he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to autopsy her, but I want to cut her head off and strike, strike her." Like, dude, what do you think about that scene? I want to see cringy Matt face in that scene.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even remember. I tuned stuff like that out because it's just like
he's like
whatever.
At Lucy's funeral, she's dead. She's declared dead. She's like, and his little apprentice is like, "Do you want to do an autopsy of her?" Like, no, not at all, not at all. No, I just want to cut her head off and stake her heart.
Yeah.
I was like,
those are not some of my
it was
favorite
very
lines.
quirky.
I actually, if it had played through more, I actually really, really liked the Van Helsing stand-in character from Nosferatu scenes, not the character, but the scenes, because they used him that like moment. It felt very out of place actually, as like the stand-in for the metaphors, like. I'm a scientist, and we're talking about this and talking about not parasitic animals, but like prey animals that you wouldn't expect, like the Venus flytrap, and this like deep sea creature tentacle thing that absorbs things, and then the spider web, and they used that person's scenes as metaphor, and then they actually got footage of those things doing the exact like I couldn't believe they got that footage.
That
honestly,
was pretty cool.
Like that's the stock footage you would get.
There's
now.
the budget, yeah.
So I actually felt like those scenes were really strong, although the Van Helsing wasn't very good. I think
He didn't do anything.
Yeah. This is my long way to getting to agree with you because I thought the 1931 Van Helsing was almost too by the book, like too like, oh, I noticed you're in the mirror, so I'm going to confront you about this evidence, and here is the mirror.
Yeah, he jumped
and then like
from square one to two.
It almost like here is I am
you-
furthering the plot in this way.
Did you think that didn't make sense?
I didn't. And
No, you keep it on the low. You keep it on the low.
You know what? I actually think. I thought you were making fun of me.
No.
I was about to continue the chat.
No, because I was bothered by that.
No,
And
yeah.
and we'll talk
He was
about
a little too like, I am part of this universe and everything is a experiment for me and it's interesting.
Look at my wrinkles.
And just for sure factor of like, it's annoying that Anthony Hopkins was
A little too quirky.
like in a movie where they gave people backstory. It would have been nice to have like a minute scene of like Anthony Hopkins, like, why are you acting like that?
They tried to do it with him, like in like the autopsy room of like with all the different doctors and him like teaching people. They tried to do it a little bit, that one scene, but it just didn't.
No,
didn't
it
work.
didn't play. Well, he was talking about syphilis, so I was like,
I know,
are you kidding me?
but
All right, Anthony Hopkins.
Okay.
You've got one of my deepest passions is syphilis. No, I agree. Peter Cushing was good.
there's something endearing about him.
Yeah,
There's
he's
something, like,
endearing and very.
plays it beautifully.
Yeah.
Even when he's recording and listening to the Dracula stuff, there's something like believable and authentic. He plays it real.
Yeah, we'll get to that. All right, we're gonna.
So
get
I think
to, we're gonna get.
We're
actually-
Cushing, you're going to Hollywood.
This is your life.
You did it. 3 S's. That's three.
You're going to high. Just got it. That's good. 4 yeses.
There
All right.
are 4 lights.
Number 4, supporting cast. All right, this is my catch-all for everyone else
Yay!
because we're already an hour in. I figured we'd go long on this.
It's
but
fine.
it's
4
worth
movies.
it.
4
Who cares?
movies. Come on.
This is our Halloween show.
It is.
Spooky. You got to get the dancing.
Dun 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 dun. dun. Matt, you're putting your foot in your mouth
That's
again.
just like me.
Stop kicking yourself. Stop kicking yourself.
so negative.
Now he's like making a sexy pose. Look at him.
Oh,
You
yeah.
like what you see?
Hold on. Maybe I can do that too.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Cut back to the
I doubted you.
So,
Cut back.
the first thing I want to start with here, because we've shown a lot of, actually not as much love to Bram Stoker's Dracula, that movie, as much as I thought,
No.
but I kind of want to rip it
Go for
for
it.
Keanu Reeves.
You know what?
You guys, hold on.
I know Kung Fu.
There was a little bit of a defense of Keanu Reeves in my lead up to seeing this for the first time.
Wait, what do you mean? I didn't defend him.
I believe you did. I remember both of you defending Keanu.
Did we defend Keanu Reeves?
Maybe
No.
Maybe it was in jest.
No.
But this was like one of the worst movie performances I've ever seen.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with
good.
you. No, I think that I think it's one of the biggest mistakes of Bram Stoker's
Keanu
Dracula.
was
we
the
agree.
worst part of the movie, and also, again,
He wasn't terrible, but he was. But
he was
wasn't
clearly out of place.
He was out, but compared to everybody else, he was awful.
compared to everyone else,
Even
Keanu Reeves barely passes in The Matrix. He barely passes in
Bill
John
and Ted.
Wick, for crying out loud.
Bill
And
and
that's
Ted.
him just being silent and just shooting guns. And this is
His
he's
British
like,
accent
I
was
have
terrible.
to do an accent, and I have to talk to. I have to be opposite Gary fucking Oldman.
It was
Like,
it was a bad.
Oh my god!
No, Matt, you're preaching to a choir. I think it was the biggest mistake that Francis Ford Coppola made in the whole movie.
Besides
And
Godfather 3.
Besides the Godfather
Hey,
3.
we were just watching this information. I think Aaron will appreciate this because it's Winona Ryder.
Oh yeah,
Of course.
What do you think about her?
Of course, I have to pick the 1992 for supporting cast. She's in it.
What did you like about her? Because I thought she was pretty good too.
Good thing you're under a desk, Aaron. Good thing you're shot from the
Who's
waist
got
up.
a pillow?
Good thing you're shot from the waist up.
She so the reason she came up because of Francis Ford, like she dropped out at the last second from Godfather Part 3.
You know that? She's
which
supposed
is why
She was going to be in there?
yeah, she was
gonna
gonna
be
play the Sophia Coppola.
Coppola's daughter.
She was going to fix the movie.
So
She was, but then she felt bad. Like she approached
yeah,
Francis Ford Coppola
that's why she's in this movie.
about doing a Dracula movie.
I
and
would
she,
almost authorize that trade.
yeah, she plays the Mina character, which is actually they did a twist on it for this movie where she had like an extra. She's like a reincarnate version
Well,
of
I did
his
the same thing for Van Helsing.
but,
and
his suicide wife.
But I think in the book, he thinks she's a reincarnation because she looks a lot so similar.
they
to her.
look similar, but in
She's
this
not.
version, in the movie
She's not,
version,
though.
well, the movie version they play it up like she clearly remembers him from something. What?
because
Yeah,
I
that
interpret it
happened.
a little bit different. But
Well, what did you think, Aaron?
I interpreted it as symbolic.
yeah,
Symbolic?
Yeah.
She
Well-
had like direct
well,
lines of like, "I remember you."
she did, but that's a lot of his influence. What I interpret why different than you is the very end. The very end when Dracula is killed with her, he is finally released and going to meet Mina in heaven. You know what I mean? That's what I feel. But you're not far off in terms of like the nitty-gritty of it. But I think he thinks he's reincarnated.
Mina's character in Bram Stoker's Dracula with Winona Ryder is the. You're gonna love this after you're making fun of me
She
at the
was
start.
terrible.
No. Her character, not performance, but her character. What they did with it was the incarnate of fake news taken to the extreme because she kills herself because of fake news.
Give it a week, girl.
Remember?
Could you explain this for me?
Do you not
She
remember?
thinks that Dracula's dead and she kills herself.
Because people send a fake, intentionally send a letter to her saying that her husband died on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Intentionally
Oh, yeah.
manipulating
Oh,
her.
Not Mina, but the
Right, yeah, no, yeah.
Elizabeth is her name.
Yeah, the original.
That's why I was confused.
Yeah.
I
it's-
thought,
and then she kills
Yeah,
herself
she's like-
because of the fake news.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And that scene was beautifully shot.
Oh
by the
my
way.
God,
and
that
that's all
scene.
practical. That's what was amazing about it.
yeah.
Can I say that one of my favorite parts of 92 was that scene? Not just that scene in particular, like it was that scene that was so good. But I love how they also do the doppelganger for Van Helsing in the past.
And it's
What?
they do. Do you
Anthony
know
I
Hopkins
didn't notice
plays
that.
the
the
priest.
priest is
I didn't notice that at
well,
all.
and I've heard interpretations that is a descendant of Van Helsing, and they knew about Dracula, and that's why he knew about
that's
Dracula.
awesome.
That's why he knew about.
That's great. That's a
why he
great
knew
detail.
about
I didn't notice
the
that.
priest, even though because I guess, and I'm not sure about this, but priests back in the day, even Catholic priests back in the day, were allowed to be married. You know, and I think it's changed since. And so it makes sense why would he have descendants or maybe relatives that knew about the lore of Dracula, and that's why he knew a lot about him. So people think he's the descendant of that priest.
See, that's cool, I guess. Whatever. but
You're a dick.
I'm
To
trying to
my
get to a
dick,
point.
Dick Tracy.
I like the doppelganger thing, but I almost like it better if he's not a direct descendant. It's just sort of like history repeating itself
I
in
like that
visual
too.
form.
That's true, and it makes sense with her
Yeah.
character too.
Yeah.
So, I think so. We talked about Keanu. He's the.
Oh, I didn't get to defend myself on that point.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember now.
Please circle back.
I never said Keanu was good in this movie. Ever. In fact, I think it was during one of our Friday the 13th episodes, Ben, we talked about this movie.
Maybe that's where I heard it. You should all go watch.
No,
go
yeah,
scour
watch
the
it.
Game Sharks catalog. For
I might not remember
Keanu.
exactly what I said, but it's about like this. I love Keanu Reeves in almost everything. He's one of my favorite actors. I want him to be in so many movies. I love him. He sucks in this movie. It was a bad decision. What are you two doing?
He was terrible. No,
It was. I think it was a really huge.
It's one of the worst performances
And I
I've
think
ever
he was
seen.
hot at the time. I think
Was
he
that
like-
studio meddling?
No, I think it was friends for a couple and wanting to think. Well, maybe it's appeal to a
Maybe
younger
I
audience.
can rein him in. I can take him
Well-
from an action star from Speed
well-
or whatever.
appeal to the younger audience.
Yeah.
So
No, he was terrible. And
so,
they,
Aaron,
they
what's
tried
your-
to doctor him.
yeah. What's your assessment about the supporting cast? You never really said what's the best supporting
I
cast.
have to pick 92 for Winona.
All right, all right.
Okay.
I can go if you want to go.
Well, I would so
You go ahead.
I'm actually interested just from a heart. I felt like the Harker character was bad.
Harker,
The Harker character.
Who's
so
Harker
Keanu
again?
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves' character.
He's the one to be married to the Mina character. He was terrible. So Keanu Reeves, obviously the worst. 1958 version, horrible.
Yeah.
That character was a nothing, making mistakes. He was just so one note and just intentionally bad. There was not.
Which supporting character? The main. Could we talk about that character? The guy at the very beginning, the Harker character in the beginning. Okay, so
In what?
1958 one.
That wasn't Harker. That was. No, you're right. Actually, it was. You're right.
So
Yeah,
Harker
yeah.
at the beginning, they both vampire hunters.
So and they're all very polite to each other.
They are, and he
Yeah.
knows Dracula's bad. He knows Dracula's bad. He's good.
That was
he
a good
went to
twist, actually.
He did. But here's one big major flaw. I don't know if you're going to talk about it later, but one big major flaw in that movie with that character is your goal is to kill Dracula, right? Why do you kill the fucking bride?
That's right.
And not kill
I
Dracula
have
right
that.
away.
Automatic.
It didn't make sense.
1958 version.
Disqualified.
Out. You're out. You're out.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
How do you go and you
Case
walk down?
dismissed.
You see two coffins, one with Dracula in it, one with the other. You obviously know what Dracula controls everything is the most evil. We're gonna go kill the bride first, wake her up with screaming, which then wakes up Dracula, who then leaves and escapes because you're an idiot. Oh my god!
Can I say
From a procedural, like you're just Jesus.
it didn't make sense, and I think that ruined it. A little bit.
I don't remember who the 1931 Harker was equally terrible. He was the one that was like in the scene where they're out on the balcony after Mina's been bitten, and she's like talking to the bat that's floating around, and she's like, "Yeah,
would
okay,
I
I
do
can do
that?"
that," and he's just like. This bat's really big. Get out of here. He's just an idiot.
1958.
That's the 31 version.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
and it's funny because the 1931 version they play up that stupid little toy bat.
Yeah, the toy bat.
But at the time, that's scary.
We'll get that. Yeah.
Okay, can I mention one thing about the 1958? I don't know if you know who this is.
The Harker?
No, but the Arthur character. The Arthur that played the brother. The brother. Do you know who that was?
No, the brother is Harker. That's who I'm talking about.
No, that's Arthur. No, the brother-in-law.
Can someone
'Cause
tell me
he's-
who was on first?
Harker. Arthur?
The one who was alive who helped Van Helsing out later.
That's Harker.
No,
No,
that's
you're right.
Arthur.
No, that's Arthur. You're right.
And I got it right here.
There wasn't a Harker. I'm talking about Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur Harker.
Would you know who Arthur was? You know who played Arthur?
No, but he was terrible.
You know, it's Michael Gar, whatever his name is.
Okay.
Alfred from the original Batman. And
You're fucking kidding
no,
me.
it's Alfred.
You're shitting me.
No, it's Alfred. I knew it right away. That's one of my notes.
Oh
It was
my God.
Alfred from the Batman Returns, Batman to Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
It's nice he got some more work after that
It was
movie.
actually not bad, but he played it.
come on.
He played it to
The writing was bad. You're right.
Yeah.
There was more the writing. And then the Harker character in Nosferatu was the exemplified the issues from a modern lens looking at the silent movie era, to your point of like them embodying stage and not having sound. Like, he was so over the top and so unrelatable.
They had to. There's no dialogue.
I get it, but like, this isn't one where you get a pass for me. Like, that was just
does
like
Keanu
him, like,
Reeves win? Yeah, does Keanu Reeves of all these before? This Keanu
It's an
Reeves
ensemble, damn it.
Wow.
who's the best target? No one wins.
Okay.
But
else?
overall, Cat, like, I felt like the Lucy character was the difference maker for me across the cast. There's actually a couple other things I want to bring up.
Was
with this.
Lucy the first character that is
Lucy's not in Nosferatu. Lucy
in
is
1958? She's the one
Lucy dies almost immediately. No,
in 1958, the one that lures the kids.
in 1931. 1958 is the one that lures the kids. She was outstanding.
Unbelievable. And when she gets killed, it's unbelievable.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
She made the movie for me in
She did.
1958.
And that death scene was
saved
amazing.
Saved the movie because it was bad up
She
to
was
that
good.
point. And then the Lucy I thought in Bram Stoker's was really strong too, from the point of like really hitting home I felt like one of the strongest aspects actually from like a tonal messaging standpoint for Bram Stoker's was that it hit on the sexual undertones of the original story.
Yeah.
Like that, women can be sexually they have a sexual desire to them, and like this monster plays into that. And like
orgy of
hitting at that. Like the other three movies don't really get at that as strongly.
No.
The Bram Stoker starts almost with the Winona Ryder looking at like a Kama Sutra book.
Yeah.
Like this is what we're going to get at. And then the Lucy character like takes that to the next level with her like the scenes where she
Her
gets
lust.
bitten or her lust, and she's struggling to
Well,
control like being tempted, and
but even the scenes with the brides.
like
when-
everything is like this orgasmic screeching, almost,
but
like they take it to the next level.
Well, it's interesting because Francis Ford Coppola is very Catholic. I don't know if he's still Catholic, but he grew up Catholic, and he directed Godfather and stuff. So he took a Catholic mindset of it, because
And the nudity too.
absolutely, but the sin of lust, the sin of all that stuff,
sure.
Like, and it kind of ranks. It does a good portrayal of that. Did you know that one? Okay, so the guy who played. The betrothed of Lucy's character. Do you know who that was? That was the Princess Bride guy. Carrie Ells.
It was
Yeah,
That was obvious.
he was great.
Yeah.
And did you know that the guy who played the American guy? Do you know who that was?
Who was that?
That was the Rocketeer. Billy Campbell. He was the Rocketeer. The Rocketeer was in.
How did I not catch that?
Yeah, he was the guy. He gets killed at the end,
They gave him some like
but he was good.
crazy amount of depth for not that enough of a
No, but
Cannon
you know,
fodder,
Oh,
he did
I'm
extremely
actually
well.
I'm actually in love with one of the main characters, but then I'm gone.
What can I tell you? You know why? Because they probably crammed so much from the novel into it. You know what I mean? Because the novel is huge. But he did better than Keanu Reeves. He's not a bad actor, but he never got famous. So
He should have been Keanu's guy character.
no, he probably couldn't do a British accent.
So-
Keanu was famous, more famous than he is.
That
So-
doesn't hold any weight for me.
I have
the
a-
director did.
I don't care.
I have a couple. I want to add before we. Do you guys have any other like main cast comments? Lucy, the Minas, the.
Well, you didn't ask me about my.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go
Add
on. Are you
no,
done?
mine are like random funnies.
So overall, what is your favorite
Overall
the
cast?
strongest cast? You'd ask me anything.
While I think the 1931, from a dialogue standpoint, which is weird, you guys may disagree with me. The dialogue and performances I felt like was the most real and the most.
And it's funny because a lot of people hate that. But I agree with you.
Interesting. Okay, I thought
Because
the
they don't
writing,
relate to it.
the writing and how they spoke, and like it felt like, oh yeah, I'm watching them. Like these are real people.
Yeah, and I love
the performances themselves didn't stand out, and obviously I didn't really like the Harker character.
Well, Renfield. Do you like the Renfield?
We haven't even. Oh my god, we haven't even talked
Can we
about
talk,
the Renfield.
let's talk about the Renfield.
Before I say anything, even though the strongest Renfield is obviously the Universal.
Yes.
The,
because
Bela
he got
Lugosi.
more screen time.
Yeah. And was a main character, basically.
He was, but they combined.
I think the strongest performances overall is Bram Stoker's.
Yes.
So,
I agree. And I agree with you 100%.
But what hurts the Renfield from the Bela Lugosi Dracula is that
That face
it's
he makes.
basically a copy paste from the Frankenstein.
But
So it's like,
but it's
I
not-
hate to give you too many points.
But it's not a copy paste because that came out before Frankenstein.
That's fine.
But
It's
Frankenstein
fine. But
came-
like if you think about like that, that actor. It's like if you took the like
Same
Heath
actor?
Ledger
Same actor?
did the Joker
He did-
performance for everything.
Oh, you're right because he's the same actor. He's the
Yeah.
same actor. Okay, you're right. But
It makes it a little.
but
less
what makes it
great.
strong is him before he turns to crazy
He
because he was
won.
very
Yes,
good.
100%. He was
And
a
the-
great actor before.
And I like so in the
His
book I
performance
believe they
is
don't
good.
talk about Renfield until he's in the insane asylum, and then they do in the Bram Stoker's one he's already in the insane asylum, and I think
So
even-
Nosferatu is already in the same asylum. Bram Stoker's is already.
and I think they combine
1958.
Keanu Reeves. Well, there is no Renfield.
They didn't have a Renfield.
No, they
did
didn't.
Yeah.
But in the Bram they combined Keanu Reeves' character. What was the Keanu Reeves' character's name again?
Harker.
Harker's character in Renfield was one.
Yeah, they,
In
they
that
merged
character,
them
they
into
merged in one because he goes to the castle. They interact.
There was a Renfield in Bram Stoker's.
No, 1931. I'm saying
Oh, you're saying they can? Oh, yeah.
they combined that character in 1931.
Sure.
As
I see.
as that.
That was like the
because
most
that's the only time
striking
they go to the
difference to me.
castle. And they said, "We'll put the Renfield stuff and we'll have the Harker character differently."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I,
He got to roam free, and like he was supposedly in an insane asylum in the 1931, but he just got to wander the
they
house.
combine that.
They
character
make it
more.
a point of saying that he escapes his room and stuff.
They do because in Nosferatu he escaped.
Master.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, and you know what's funny in the Dracula Dead and Loving It, Renfield is played by the guy who plays Vigo, the little Vigo worshiper in Ghostbusters too.
You're like
funny.
the buzzing of flies to him.
He's a very good actor.
From
Sophie's Choice.
Dragon
Dragon's Heart.
Dragon
or
Heart.
Dragon Slayer.
Dragon
Slayer.
Yeah.
Dragon Slayer.
Peter McNichol.
Matt or Aaron?
I've already answered the question.
No, go.
No.
Post it up right
That's-
now.
What?
We talked about Dragonheart, right? You said Dragonheart, right?
Oh!
We got to remake it.
Remake Dragon.
Yeah, remake Dragonheart.
Yeah, good.
Remake Dragonheart. Remake Dragonheart.
I'm sorry, I wasn't up on my cue there.
So, yeah, this is going to go
Well,
really long.
you know, it's going to be short for 4 movies.
Yeah. So before we go to our last one, before then we vote, I want to add 2 tidbits from the 1958 and then the 1931 movies that were amazing scenes from characters that weren't big characters that I thought were just absolutely hysterical. So from 1931, this is the Martin employee that keeps having to track down Renfield, who keeps escaping. The guy who's like, oh, he keeps escaping. Let's go, you eat it. You know,
Cockney.
he's standing outside with his gun, and one of the nurses out there is with him outside too, and they're shooting at the bat. And somebody Van Helsing shouts at him, the bullets can't hurt that one. And then Martin, who's the employee, goes, he's talking to the maid, and he's talking about, you know what? Sometimes I think they're all crazy, except you and me. You and me are the only not crazy ones. But I have my doubts about you.
yeah,
to the maid.
that really caught my attention.
And the maid goes, yes. And then he just does the Peter Griffin slowly back.
Kool-Aid Man.
That was like one of the funniest things. I don't even know if it was supposed to be comedy, but it was hysterical.
If it was intentional, it was genius.
It's amazing. Just like the fact that they even had that scene between those characters.
Yeah.
And then
Maybe
the
they
other
realized
one,
that humor is good to break up serious moments.
also I think intentionally funny, had to be funny. In 1958, where they're tracking the coffin. They're trying to like GPS the coffin, where the route it took and where it ended up, and it ends up in the mortician's place. And the mortician who gets 5 minutes of screen time, and they
Yeah,
spent
that's
so
hilarious.
much time and effort
That's
on that
hilarious.
mortician. So they walk
He's
in.
like, lovey-dovey-dovey. that this guy fell and killed himself, and now he's in the grave. Yeah.
Pretty hilarious, right?
So you explain. I probably butchered
So
it.
Van Helsing and the Harker character walk in, and the mortician's got this big top hat, and he's like,
he's
like all giggly about the story of this guy who's like, mind the steps, there was this guy who came to the place, and he was walking down the steps, and he wanted to pay his respects, to somebody who died. And I know my way around, but this guy, he slipped on the steps and he fell and died, and it's a shame. He came to pay his respect, but then he stayed and shared them. It was very amusing.
Where's the coffin?
This guy died on his property, and he's like,
won't be my witness. The coffin.
and then he goes and right after talking about this tragic death, he just goes up to the coffin and it's like, but where is that coffin? I knew it was here somewhere.
You still have some radio tubes?
No. Just his callousness with death was so funny.
He's a mortician.
Yeah,
He sees this stuff every day.
and I'm
Wonder
giving
what's
it
in this
points,
coffin. Hope
'cause
it's not
clearly
another
they
dead
wrote
body.
I wonder where that's from.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought those two were funny. They don't
were.
earn points for anything.
They
for that,
were.
but
Yeah. It wasn't.
So I say Bram Stoker's. What did you guys say?
We all
you said
said
Bram.
Bram.
We're all on
I think
Bram.
we're in unison.
All right. Yeah.
And all of
too.
you are going to Hollywood.
That's right. All right. Last one.
X Factor.
X Factor. So this is the catch-all for
Professor X.
anything that kind of stood out beyond the performance, beyond the
All right.
we haven't talked about.
I got my opinions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Ben, go first.
Francis Ford Coppola. X Factor. You have an amazing director who directed, who did things unbelievably well thought out, well planned in Francis Ford Coppola. The majority of Bram Stoker's Dracula 1992 version of Dracula was, there's only, I believe, one shot from what I understand that was post-production. Everything was shot in camera and did like overlays of like different things. And he fired his special effects team and hired his son, so everything was shot in it. Okay, I'm gonna have to say this about this movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula, compared to the other ones, but also compared to movies in general. And unfortunately, Keanu Reeves kind of
He threw a wrench into the works.
He threw the wrench in the works. But in terms of directorial stance, after watching this again, I think I put this up there with Citizen Kane in terms of composition.
Keanu aside, you mean?
Keanu aside. Well,
So
the way
if you think
construction of the movie, the build of the movie, the way it was put together.
this was all the director's vision.
This is all
Let's
the
put it
director's
that
vision.
way, because it's maybe not famous, but if you didn't know, he storyboarded the entire movie as an animatic before they filmed the movie. So like he composed the shots he wanted.
Was that revolutionary for its time?
No,
I don't know,
but for a complete movie, probably. Because he composed it to show his art directors.
Animatics.
Well, no,
Storyboards were
I don't think
not-
animatics
for a
were-
live action to do an animatic
But he
for an
showed-
entire full length movie
to show
seems-
your art directors.
Yeah.
to show the art.
I mean, storyboards were nothing new, obviously.
No, but you could tell it was pre-planned.
Yeah.
You could tell how much
Everything
effort.
was done just so.
Absolutely, and tender love and care.
so.
But it was the music, the play, the tragedy, the timelessness of it had.
That opening
You're
scene.
right.
Nobody-
It plays as a tragedy more than a monster movie or
Yeah.
a horror or scary. Like it plays as a tragedy
It's
for
a
that
tragedy
character.
for Dracula.
Yeah.
And the music is unbelievable. The costumes, the majority of that budget was spent on the costumes, and the costumes are in the movie. I want to call out the shadows.
shadow stuff because we haven't talked about that yet. And what they did with the shadows both played as an homage to
Nosferatu.
obviously, which
And
is
even
its strongest part.
1931.
But
Yep.
what they did a twist on it without ruining the original
Took it to
reference.
the next level. Made
Took
their
it to a
own.
next reference. Yeah, and what they did with his hand reaching out to touch Keanu while he's shaving,
Oh,
but
God.
he's standing way back there. Like the stuff they did with that,
Plays
and
the
the shadow, like having a life of its own and following and having almost like physical property. Like The stuff they did with those scenes was amazing. I thought that's one of my favorite parts of that movie.
To that end, one of my favorite shots in that whole 92 movie is when Keanu's on the train and you see Dracula's eyes in the sunset. That was cool.
I liked those scenes
that's
a lot.
Practical effect of double exposure.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the simplest effects you can do.
Yeah, and that was a projection. That was not a green
For the
screen.
shadows.
No, for the train. That was a projection. They projected. That was a back screen projection.
Okay.
That was caught in the camera, and they inserted that. One thing was cool was the gravity of the castle in that movie, where
we talked about.
Well,
that.
Keanu is escaping, right? He escapes, and he's walking, sliding.
Physics don't make sense.
Physics don't make sense there, and he keeps walking, and all of a sudden he's falling down. And even though he keeps sliding down, he's falling
rats
down.
Are upside down on the beam.
Everything's upside down. The rats are upside down. Yeah, it's just it's kind of a very Stanley Kubrick approach of doing things that were just like uncomfortable, that made you uncomfortable.
A little less ham-fisted than some of
One of my biggest
Kubrick
complaints
stuff.
of all the Dracula, and this is because of the novels, I wish we spend more time in the castle.
Yes.
Because I think it'd
Of
be
Bram Stoker?
Bram Stoker in general, and even in the other movies, because it's so spooky.
But if they were going to stick with the book,
So I would push back and say that the 1931 did enough with regards to the castle to be like, whoa, the set,
it was gorgeous.
That's one of my favorite parts about
the high ceilings,
the spider web, the weird creatures, the fog, the ruinous nature of the castle.
There's
everything about
one sequence that with the blocking and the cinematography in the 1931 Dracula was unbelievable. When the brides were coming and they're walking towards Renfield, and he comes in and then they stop and they leave.
Yeah,
like that sequence with the fog and everything, the way they were their unison walking was just gorgeous.
So that was something I did look up.
And they were only in for that minute.
Did read about was that the director for the 1931 version wasn't super involved.
What?
Or was like kind of flaky. So the cinematographer was almost the de facto
and you
director.
can tell.
The cinematography's outstanding.
Because it was a film.
Yeah.
Mostly built on his imagery, and it's funny because they both do it. They both do it in both in two of them, and I'm guessing in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's probably in the book where Dracula is the coachman. Who played
he
played the coachman in three of them, and I think he was the coachman in the other. And I love in Bram Stoker's when his arm just reaches abnormally long,
carries him.
Yeah, it's so good,
seemingly without weight.
Yeah, and it stretches as it keeps moving with the camera. It's like, how do you do that?
I like how it was just an unidentified ghoul.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's all interesting.
Well, I know. I probably know how they did that. Just have Keanu on a platform that's attached to a mechanical arm.
But he didn't move. I think the mechanical arm moved.
I mean, there's a platform Keanu could be standing on, and a mechanical arm that off screen attached to that platform that will lift him up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I think from an effects standpoint, I feel like the shadows from Nosferatu are iconic. And they use them really well to show shadows creeping up on people's actual person and showing that impact.
And grabbing the heart.
That was really
but the subtlety
strong.
Of that. And you've seen that for the first time in theaters. You got to think about that.
1931 didn't have a whole lot of actual effects.
There was not effects.
It actually took a lot of.
It was a stage play.
I think it takes a lot of heat from the bats. Honestly,
it did, and it was more about the sets.
Yes,
and the sets and
the
cinematography.
scenery, and
because there's one point where Dracula turns into a wolf, but they just mention it and they don't show it.
Yeah, it's off screen.
I feel like the strongest part of the 1958 is the decay shots at the very end where they show him decomposing.
It's cheesy, but it's wow, that's pretty good.
It's actually pretty good.
You know what?
You could see they didn't just he turned to dust and here is dust. You could see the
agony.
You could still see almost this is a hand, and there is actually still an actor there with a hand, but they did the stuff on top of it that you almost feel it could keep moving, but they did enough that it looks like it's decaying.
Okay. So can we talk about that scene real quick? I think that's the best death.
Really?
I think it's the best payoff because.
Oh no!
Well, I think
I thought that was the worst.
Well, I think it's the best. I didn't, because the reason why was you have the standoff between Peter Cushing and him, and the only way to kill him is to get the sunlight. And obviously it didn't apply to Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it applied to the other ones, and driving the stake to his heart. But like, he's in a pickle, and he goes to it, and like he pushes them into the light. And it was a very good end scene. And did it have the payoff from everything else? Maybe not, but it had a good payoff in terms of just that scene. If you just put
Ben,
that scene,
when Cushing pulled the curtains down, all I could think of was, "What fall of the curtains?"
not the curtains.
So here's the thing that I would push back on that is that like all the other movies were almost went out of their way to say that Dracula isn't killed in sunlight, but is just weakened.
No, he's killed Nosferatu by sunlight.
Yeah.
No, he's not. No,
Yes.
he's not.
Yes, he is.
He turns into a puff of smoke.
He turns a puff of smoke and
But
burns.
it was it's almost as
I watched-
part of a sacrifice, though. Like
You
that
think
she
so?
sacrificed herself. That was part of the whole story. Was that a woman could sacrifice herself, and she realized it, and so that was part of it.
Okay, but he physically died in sunlight. He didn't know.
Yeah. Okay. So those two, I guess you could technically.
yeah,
say. But I feel like that's a
and
weak.
I think that kind of made me mad. It kind of made me mad because there was no payoff for the protagonist. It was like, oh well, fuck, Dracula was a little late on this. He got up a little late on this.
He wasn't thinking that
No,
day.
all that work to move all those coffins.
I actually feel like so from the effects standpoint, they did a lot with the Bram Stokers, obviously with the the monster versions and the smoke and some other aspects that added
The editing,
another element to it.
Timelessness to it.
I think some of the other like really strong, even like the simplest X factor is like trying to, from a storytelling standpoint, avoiding narration and avoiding relying on the diary. Obviously, the silent movie Nosferatu had an issue. You have to show stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even they didn't like show the person having an inner monologue.
Mm-hmm.
It was through like, oh, I found this book that gives me this information. At least they tried. The worst thing about the 1958 version is constantly just hearing them and watching them write in a diary and hearing what they wrote in it.
Well,
like that's terrible. That's terrible screenwriting.
but all of them have diaries in it.
That's fine.
But you know why though?
You reference it one time and that's it. Bram Stoker's, and that's it.
But you know why they do it? No, everybody has a diary. They reference one time. The narration is kind of the diary.
Actually, yeah, that's right. I hated it in Bram Stoker's because Mina had one.
But you know why though? You know why they did it? Because the entire the book is all written in diary
That's
form.
fine. That's the thing where
That's the thing.
That's the thing where you adapt. Because the 1931 version didn't have that.
No, not at all.
And that's what makes it. That's what I'm getting at. Is
Oh,
that
okay.
It's so strong because even though it was 1931, they didn't. And
There's no
maybe
diary.
that's part
There's
of
no diary.
the stage version. I guess I don't know, but like they didn't have
They
the
didn't
diary.
feel
They didn't
tied
have
down.
like inner monologues being projected to
Yeah.
everybody. Like
Do you think 'cause
they told it all through story. Everything.
So,
all was
and-
show, not tell.
No
And
musical
and you know
notes.
why? I think why you appreciate that is because exposition can be really bad. And like,
Yes.
even though they try to be true to the book and the other ones, the adaptation of it not being, that's a really good point.
They
Matt.
didn't rely on they did a very efficient townspeople at the very start of the movie
Yeah.
where we're supposed to get our
Yeah,
introduction
we get
to
how
be afraid.
scary- yeah.
We get it. Like they did a very
Nosferatu.
efficient 2-sentence Dracula comes at night and he kills people. Or
Yeah.
I forget what it was.
I actually like the beginning of the 31 one a lot because they kind of just jump into it.
yeah.
Yeah, the little girls reading the book, and I know what you're talking about. The villagers at the end.
The other X factor I would just include really quick, we already kind of talked about it, was the Renfield character.
Yeah,
It wasn't particularly strong in any of the other movies other than 1931. And I think it was so strong both by the performance, but also because he was so crazy. And to your point, we saw him before. That adds an element of how
good the acting is.
how
How
just-
transformed he is.
yes,
How
it shows
fucked up he
how
was.
scary
What
of
Dracula
a
can
power
do.
Dracula has. That
And-
he went from this to this, A
And-
to B,
And he had the payoff of getting killed in 1931. Like, no, master, no. And then that death thing was so scary.
Oh, I thought the death scene was actually bad at that. Where we
Was
see
it
him
a
just
little-
slowly
But
fall down.
as a kid, you're terrified. But he got a payoff. He had the most arc out of anybody.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I guess so. Yeah.
They should call it Renfield instead of Dracula.
Rencula.
But
Master.
Master. It was so over the top.
Master! Exclamation point. Mother! Exclamation point. Oh.
Why?
Making comparisons. Okay.
Haven't used that in a while.
You think we've covered it all?
I haven't said my X Factor.
Oh, go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
go
you
ahead, Aaron.
Forgot about me.
Thank you.
I was waiting my turn.
Sorry.
Tell us, Renfield. Eat your bugs.
I'll give you, Ben, I was going to agree with you about X Factor on the 92 movie, but for different reasons.
Oh.
The best X Factor out there for me is that Dracula has a backstory.
Yes. That's a very good point.
I don't even care if it's sympathetic.
That
I
is a
just
great-
wanted something.
Great point.
Well, you know, it's interesting. That's different from the book because there is no backstory of
Right.
Dracula.
He's just a boogeyman.
Yeah.
I
Well,
need a little more depth, please.
You get why he is lumped in with the others as the classic monster movies is because it's somebody who it's one of those like there is no motivation. There is no they just are uncontrollable monsters.
Forces of nature.
And the others, Frankenstein has a lot of like, oh, he can become a sympathetic character, other things, but you can understand why Dracula is a monster for the first iterations and they tried to get away from it in the 1958 where he's like very polite and very he's like sophisticated which is almost immediately like gone like 30 minutes and all of that's out the window. It almost didn't matter. But to your point, Bram Stoker does a great job of not just establishing this pre-existing like the love as a theme for him and like why it explains all of it and why he has revenge, but it includes like it even gets at like in the original movies, other than just Christianity is great and will make everything better, like why does the cross hurt him at all? We have no idea. The Coppola actually takes a stab at that, literally. Yes. Woo! Nailed it.
I remember can I make one point about that scene? I remember watching it with Aaron for the first time, so you got to watch Bram Stoker's Dracula with me. And he watched it, and he's like, "Oh my god!" When at the very beginning he stabs the cross and it starts bleeding,
Blood.
It was so metal.
But I think what it was different. Yeah, it was. I think what was different between the novel and everything else is that Francis Ford Coppola took from history, because if you don't know, audience, Dracula is based on Vlad the Impaler.
Yes.
And Vlad the Impaler was known to be a warrior in the Crusades who impaled people, and
So that's where it came from.
So that's where the spear.
But they took
that guy.
But they took
got
that. They took the
impaled on the
lore of
spear.
Dracula and talked about his Crusade area in the Crusade part, which is based on Vlad the Impaler.
Yep.
And they added the Crusades in it because that was all about the Crusades and him fighting, but he would impale people. He led the
awesome
army.
red armor.
Yeah. Oh god.
Oh,
the
yeah.
costume.
The
costume
costume's
was amazing.
amazing. Yeah,
Costumes were amazing. Every costume, the makeup was the prosthetic was amazing. And that's another X factor too.
Okay. So
All
let's
right.
vote.
An hour and 35.
Who wins?
Who wins? I'll go first.
Okay.
A little difference.
I gotta pee.
Let's wrap this up. I think 1958 version was I actually did not like it, even though we all voted that the Van Helsing was the strongest
Yes.
of the
I'm
four
glad
movies.
we did.
I thought that movie as a whole was terrible.
It was weak.
There's some plot holes.
The plot holes, the 1950s acting, fighting,
Alfred.
like everything about it was not very good. I think if I'm going in order, I think Nosferatu's third, which disappoints me because I think it
It's
has
brilliant.
a lot of
It had a
you know what?
brilliance to it.
And we kind of shunned it here, but it's not. It's brilliant. It's
But
unbelievably good.
It it has it has the creepiness factor. It sets the stage almost to like it kind of almost subverts the Dracula thing by not making him so sophisticated, making him very like off-putting from the
yeah,
start.
you're Dracula.
This
so-
is a guy, all right.
You're a vampire.
I really liked him. I liked the scene. Like they set the stage a lot with the shadows, with him like slowly emerging. We didn't even talk about the fact that the difference between Nosferatu and a lot of the other movies is that they confused him with like the plague. Like they weren't sure.
Yeah.
Like the mystery of who was killing all these people. Like that's different from the others in that. Like they kind of touched on in the Bram Stoker's where Van Helsing says, what makes him so scary, or what makes him a monster is that people don't go out of their way not to believe it.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to believe it, which is different from them where they're just like, oh my God, we can't figure this out. What is happening? Like it's, it's a different dynamic.
Unless you're in Transylvania.
It has a lot of important elements. I'm actually going to say my favorite, non-controversially, was the 1931
I know.
version.
You know why I know that? Because as we're watching this, it's like, I got to go out and buy the Universal collection of monster movies.
Yep.
You love
that arrived today.
Yeah. You,
I wish I had.
You love that.
So
I appreciate that about you.
Bram Stoker. I will say Bram Stoker's is a very close what they did. Coppola, Gary Oldman, like all the performance, like it was very good. It had some elements I wasn't a super big fan of.
Wow.
I actually think the atmosphere, the silence, the sets, and Bela Lugosi, like I thought some of the cut shots to his eyes were awkward at some points, but like that element to it was so different, and like you can't replicate it. You can't replicate it with any other actor.
You will never do
anybody else. So
You'll never do it. Especially today.
I would go with the Universal. So.
Good job, man. I was
You had a right opinion.
No.
Correct.
You agree with the masses.
Yeah.
No, you didn't agree with the masses. But it was it's a very good thing. And I think I feel a little nostalgia in there for you with that opinion too, don't you? Do I?
Well, so as I talked to you about this actually, the Universal monsters when they were on, like as I said, I wasn't a Halloween person. Remember? Mm-hmm. We started that. I'm glad you brought this full circle. It's almost like you're thinking.
I love Thanksgiving.
I wasn't a Halloween person until there was 1 year on Netflix where they had all the Universal monster movies on it.
Wow.
Like
that's really
6
late
years
in your
ago.
life.
No, you're right. It was after.
Wow.
I
loved Halloween.
I actually went from like Halloween's all right to I hate Halloween because of college. College, like.
Well, why?
Because, people like, it's college, we're going to dress up and be sexy, and it's a party, get drunk. It wasn't.
And you're like, I have nobody to love.
You know what? I'm at home. This is getting extremely personal. But
wow.
Moving forward.
It's because you hate lipstick.
The Universal.
No slutty nurses for you.
What are you going to do?
It's actually ironic.
No kisses on the cheek?
The Universal movies actually got me into the Halloween and horror movie, got me into that stuff, which is ironic because I hate lipstick and all of them have like crazy black and white lipstick on. But like, yeah, so I have a nostalgia for this.
Can I piggyback on the Universal thing?
Yeah.
I think I was very young when I was exposed to that Universal stuff. And I think that's kind of what got me into it to begin with as a very young kid. I watched the the Universal stuff as a little kid. And I loved this stuff. And King Kong, my God, I love King Kong. One little tidbit I want to make before we go on. 1931 was the first one of the few. Like there was no music at all to it, and a lot of movies in the first talkies eras had a lot of music that was already written for it.
Yeah.
The first, I believe this, and correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube or Facebook or whomever. But the first ever scored movie to any movie is 1933. I think it was 1933. King Kong. King Kong was the first ever scored movie.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable, beautifully scored. So you get to think about the time period. So, but I was exposed to this stuff, and I loved it. So you were a late bloomer. I was not a late bloomer because I have parents who love the old stuff, and they exposed me to this stuff because it was scary, but it's only so scary for a little kid, because it's not Bram Stoker's Dracula where it's like nudity and.
So do you want to hold off on yours, or do you want to let Aaron go first?
No, I'll say mine.
All right.
I'll say mine. After rewatching these recently, even though I love the 1931 Dracula, and I love it to death. I love him as the coachman. I love him as everything else. And as a film connoisseur, and especially when I mentioned earlier, I think Bram Stoker's Dracula is probably one of the best films ever made.
I mean, you were comparing it to Citizen Kane earlier.
Well, exactly, but if,
I know you're not the biggest fan of Citizen Kane.
I'm not, but I appreciate that. But I appreciate the construction of the movie. Is Dracula a perfect movie? No, it's not. Bram Stoker, no, but
Keanu.
no, that was a big and some other flaws to it.
You're biting me.
He tried to cram in things like there's one little plot hole. There's one big plot hole that didn't make sense to me, like when Van Helsing goes with Mina to the castle, but as they're coming, there's guards at the castle still. But how did Van Helsing get in? Like, there's a lot of plot holes like that didn't make sense.
The third act of of Bram Stoker's was bad.
But in
it
terms
was just
of,
really
in terms
not
of,
well done.
Yeah, in terms of cinematography, I just loved it. I loved it. I thought in terms of the artistry, because Francis Ford Coppola is amazing director, and he's very versatile in what he does. Godfather's completely different than Bram Stoker, but in terms of an art film, in terms of the artistic direction, I think Bram Stoker is my favorite.
Okay.
1931 comes close second, and I like 1958, and then Nosferatu.
1950. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I think, you know why? It's Peter Cushing. It's Peter Cushing.
Wow.
Peter Cushing winning. The other stuff, and the fact that they shot in real castles and stuff was a cool thing.
Yeah.
You know, the real stuff. So I love Nosferatu. I think it's great imagery wise, but like, I still couldn't get out of the silent film era. And
Okay.
I tried to put myself into it, but I had an Aaron mindset.
Yeah.
So I think if you want, I think I recommend all these ones.
All of them, yes.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would disagree on 1958.
It's
not worth it.
I think it's worth it. I think I recommend
Almost
all.
not worth it, but worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think 1931 is a close second.
So I know, obviously, Aaron, you said you didn't get into Nosferatu.
I
the silent
actually
movie.
really disliked it.
Yeah.
Like in 1931 Dracula, that was what, 9 years later? I love that one. It's not an issue of it being
It's
too
leaps-
old. I just
leaps
didn't
and
like it.
bounds.
But it's not also that
different.
there's the reason why I like it is audio, and they have
I have
they had a
watched
higher
silent
budget.
movies before.
And
Yeah,
strong
but-
performances too. Like it's not just like it's
The budget
not
was
just
more.
oh they can talk now. Like oh they're actually
But the sets,
solid
the
characters.
sets were unbelievable.
Some of my favorite movies don't have a lot of talking in
Sure.
them. So what?
So what's your favorite?
Oh boy.
I know this one.
Shocker. It's the one with Winona Ryder in it.
In the black hair.
Are you guys done?
Yeah. Beetlejuice.
All right. Well, my answer's kind of roundabout a little bit. Well, I want to pick 1931 because it's so nice, you know? It's got all this good stuff going for it. But the problem is, I didn't care about any of these movies before Ben made me watch Bram Stoker's Dracula. I have to pick that one because it's what got me into Dracula.
And I knew it because because I remember the first time you watched it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I loved the Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I hated everything. Everything, I tell you. Everything sucked.
Everything I
So
tell
many
ya.
plot holes. So many bullshit.
Sorry, go ahead. Aaron.
Fuck Trump.
So this is agreed. No, so this was the this was the movie that got you into Dracula.
Yeah, I mean, I before all these movies, I loved Castlevania, but that was apart from the lore and stuff, like the video game Castlevania. Reskin that as any story, I would still like that game. But Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula is what got me into Dracula. So I picked that.
And I think it's the opening scene with the heart.
I mean, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Sans
Well, that's
Keanu.
The
if
kit
you're talking
and
about.
caboodle.
They obviously do like subtle differences with the main story, but if you're talking about deviating from the main Dracula, you're making a face.
Gotta pee.
You're okay.
No.
If you're talking-
I'm holding in, guys.
If you're
It's an hour
talking
and
about
46.
if you're talking about the major differences between the movies or between the stories, that Bram Stoker's did that intro scene where they set up a backstory and then they twist it where Mina is the one that kills him and does it out of love, which is very different.
Yes.
And, you know, so there's a different overall approach to it. So yeah, I can see why you would
Mina
appreciate
didn't
all
kill
that.
him in the Bram Stokers.
Yeah, she did.
No,
She cut off his head. Well, I mean, he was already dead, but she cut off his
yeah,
head.
but he was knifed already.
yeah.
A knife isn't going to kill Dracula.
Yeah, but no, she was the one.
To the heart.
She did the fatal blow. All right.
Back to formula.
So we are.
An hour and
You
46
win.
minutes. And
Bram Stoker's won.
Bram Stoker's wins.
We'll be interested. I'll be interested to see if anybody.
That's crazy.
agrees.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be completely different.
I thought you were going to agree with me.
Well,
As the
but
oldie.
I don't care
But
what
I,
you think.
but I was close. But I took nostalgia out of the picture. I took
right.
it in terms of film after rewatching Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I can't separate myself from it.
Billy Campbell was in the Bram Stoker's one. I love The Rocketeer.
That was a deciding factor. No, it wasn't.
So that was fun. That was a good one. That was a fun one to
it's
do.
one of
I'll be
my
interested to
favorite
see Frankenstein maybe next year. But
Yeah.
are you guys doing anything fun for Halloween? Because I most
No.
definitely am
I'm
not.
dressing up as a fairy.
I'm
I'm taking a day off of work.
do people
Tinkerbell.
people are we're adults now. We don't go.
Nobody does that.
Should we go trick or treating
No.
as these?
Trick or treat.
Who are you supposed to be? I'm someone who hates everything.
I love old video games.
I love current video games too, but I like the old ones especially.
I'm nothing but skin
That's
and
my
bones.
parody of you.
Oh, it was spot on. Well done. You did your homework.
So yeah. All right. So happy Halloween, everybody listening, watching. Hopefully, it's a really good Halloween. We're gonna transition completely out of Halloween stuff. Obviously, going forward, we got Thor, Batman's, Justice League. November's gonna be like a superhero driven month. I
Yeah.
think.
It's gonna be
Into
my
the
favorite
room.
month.
Could we
So-
do Thanksgiving where we if for trains, planes, and automobiles because that's the Thanksgiving movie.
We'll review that movie every week for the whole month.
We will.
We'll see if it fits in. We'll see.
Yes.
Happy
So-
Halloween.
Thanks for bearing with us this whole almost
4
2
movies.
hours,
You
so-
know what? 4
movies.
movies.
Hopefully, it was
under
worth it.
2 hours. Boom.
Yep. Thanks. See everybody.
Oh, I have to do the outro thing.
Goodbye.
I remember how to do that.
Yeah.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hours close at hand. I'm muted now, right?
No.
No, I'm. Yeah. Mute me, please.